Mr. Pond Boss, tell me what to do to make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Hello everybody, Bob Lusk checking in live from Pond Boss World Headquarters. Hey, I know one of the first things you're going to tell me is the dadgum sign is backwards. And I think Facebook changed their settings and didn't tell anybody. So I haven't figured out how to do it. I see Wayne and Josie checking in, Doug Cusick. Doug, I hope you called in and got your order information figured out. So here we go. Just don't pay any attention to everything behind me or whatever I'm getting ready to show you, because it's all going to be backwards because they all changed it up. There's Justin and Shank. Good to see Justin. Tom Davis. Good to see you guys. Look at there. Pond Boss backwards. I need a mirror. Reed Gaston's checking in. Hey, you guys know the drill. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comments section. Click like, tag a friend, and share this video to your timeline. You'll be eligible for a Pond Boss hat, a Pond Boss mug that knows how to keep hot things hot and cold things cold. We don't know how it does, but there you go. Hey, and guess what? We got a new little toy from Easy Doc. Look at that, a cooler. He sent us 3 of these and said to give them away. So it's big enough to hold a 6-pack of something good. So we're going to have a drawing tonight, and it looks like Terry Dooley is the winner. So Terry, we don't have your address. You're not in our subscriber base. So email me, or actually just email info@pondboss.com with your address, and we will send you one of these cool little totes. And I got 2 more to give away in the next few weeks. So we will see how that goes. Well, it's raining cats and dogs out here. I'm hanging out in the office. I left Ruidoso, New Mexico a couple of days ago and shot up to Clovis and got to see my longtime preacher friend, Johnny Funderburg, just after surgery. And he and I got to spend some good time together. Then I shot over to Childress and hung out with a couple of guys there. Dustin Pratt, who's a physician there, he's buying a piece of property and he wanted to look at the prospects of building a lake, and then spent the night with them, and then shot up to between Tulsa and Oklahoma City to look at a piece of property that the guy just bought there. So we'll back up here and make sure I'm not missing anybody. Now, sometimes my phone lets me see other people. I see Trevor checking in, Michael Gregory checking in, Mike Cook with the Boy Scouts checking in from up there in North Cackalack. I'm trying to put together a trip to North Carolina. I'm struggling to get all the logistics put together, but I will, and I'll be hollering at you there, Mike. Swing by and take a look. Billy Bates, Troy Todd, Chris Arthur, Philip Benefield said hello already. Let's see here. Let me scoot down here. Wyatt, Mike McPherson from Indiana. Wyatt's in Denver, Colorado with property in Texas. There's Vito. Vito, I'm just up the road from you. The rain's pounding on my roof just like it is yours. Billy Bates, good to see Billy. Oh my gosh, look at how cute Billy Bates is. He hashtagged it backwards. Holy cow, I'm slow, but I ain't quite that slow. Cute. I can't even spell it backwards. Good job. Of course, I want to take your questions. Hey, Michael Eric in Iowa. I got to go look at a piece of property. It's 160 acres near Depew, Oklahoma, between there and Stroud to the north. And there's an existing 10-acre lake that's over 60 years old. Pretty cool looking lake. It's shaped kind of like a boomerang. And on the top of the boomerang is the dam. So the dam is really kind of long, and the guy brought a boat. Matter of fact, if I remember, I'll post a video of that dam. And you can look on, after the show, you can look at on my personal Facebook page, Bob Lusk, and you'll see the video. But as we got out in the water in this cool old aluminum boat, and I looked at the dam, there was just a really big beaver lodge. And you can see it in the video. And the entrance to that beaver lodge is huge. And there's got to be multiple beavers living in it. So as we went around it, I noticed to the left of the beaver lodge, at one end of the dam, there was a little terrace, a mud terrace. And over the years, the beavers built that terrace. It's probably 18 inches tall and 40 or 50 feet long. Behind it's a big sycamore tree. Well, that's at the end of the dam opposite from where the spillway is. So I had him circle around with the boat so I could look at that beaver lodge, and I know that beaver lodge is way over 20 years old. I mean, there's some wood in there that was rotten with fresh wood on top of it. And as we went along the dam, I counted over 30 slides. There was a slide about every 10 feet. And each one of these slides, and you guys that know a little bit about aquatic animals, you know exactly what I'm talking about. What it is it's where an animal comes over the dam and then slides down into the pond. So it's a little trail that's usually muddy right beside it. And of those 30 slides I saw, at least half of them are active. And they ranged in size from about that size up to that size. So I knew there had to be a variety of mammals that are coming in this lake and probably have been for years and years and years. Then as we came on past the beaver lodge, there was a hole about that big around going back into the dam. And I know that that's where beavers live as well. So I got a feeling in his dam there's an intricate tunnel, maybe not that intricate, but a pretty good chunk of tunnel that goes back into that beaver lodge. And that beaver lodge is probably 25 feet long, jutting out into the pond 15 feet. And it's got to be at least 15 feet wide. So it's really, really big. Oh, look at there. Vito put a link up to it. And if y'all go now, come right back. But, you know, look at it later. Hey, Mike Cottrell checking in for Palo Pinto County. Yep. Kevin Matney from Erie, Michigan. Great. Way up yonder. I mean, I got a cool story coming out in the next issue of Pond Boss for just exactly where you live, Kevin. If you guys aren't subscribers to Pond Boss, let's go ahead and knock that out. I'll knock it out a couple times. Anyway, here it is. Backwards. Because Facebook changed the settings. I can't flip the video like I usually can. Anyway, $35 a year. Vito, you know what I'm going to say. Cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. And it's full of nuggets. It's good stuff. So anyway, that beaver lodge has been there long enough that I know they've dug into the dam. Now, the dam is completely grown up in trees on the front side slope, the top of the dam, and the back side slope. And that's a 10-acre lake, and he's found water in it as deep as 15 feet. And I'm sure that's in the borrow pit where they dug the dirt to build the dam 60-plus years ago. So he brought me there to talk about fish. But when I saw the dam, I didn't really want to talk about fish. The fish at that point went way, way, way down the food chain. So looking at those slides, that's actually, in 41 years of doing this, I've never seen a dam with that many slides and so many of them different, which makes me think he's got beavers. It would not surprise me if he's got river otters coming in. Some of those slides are about the same size as weasels, mink, muskrats, and even nutria. Now, that might be a little cool part of the planet for nutria to make it, but I know he's got abundant aquatic animals just because the sizes of the slides, and half of them are active. So he's got a huge number, which those things impact the fishery. If he's got river otters, they're eating his fish. You know, I told him that. So I said, you know, really, the fishery is second. He had two things he wanted to talk to me about. One was he wanted to talk about the fishery. The second thing he wanted to do was talk to me about the abundant vegetation. So around the perimeter of the lake is Eurasian water milfoil, and its density was about 2/3 of where I've seen it get. So it wasn't quite as dense as I've seen in the past. It was still pretty dense. So the entire perimeter of that lake, except some little bit in front of the dam, for all practical purposes, 100% of that lake has got milfoil going around the perimeter out into water about 4 feet deep. So I asked him, I said, do you know if there's any structure in the bottom of this lake? He says, no, I don't, but I've got a Lowrance unit that, electronics that I can see on the bottom. So I said, okay, here's what I want you to do. First thing you got to do is clear a path along the top of that dam so that somebody can come with you and inspect it. Because I firmly believe that dam is compromised. If that beaver lodge has been there as long as it looks like, and the top of the dam looked like it might have been 12 feet across when it was finished, it's not 12 feet across everywhere now. So there's voids and weak spots in that dam. So my recommendation was to get out there, clear the top of the dam off somehow, even if it's just with a skid steer and grinding down some of those trees so you can walk. You know, get an earth mover out there that knows what he's doing, that's built lakes in that area, and then go check out that dam and look at dam safety. Because we couldn't see this. I couldn't get around it. So I have no idea what the backside slope looks like. But what I do know is the front side slope is eroded and it's chewed up and there's slides everywhere. So, nose is itching. Sound like somebody's coming to see me. So, I told him job one is go find a trapper. There's got to be a local trapper around there and work something out with him to start trapping some of those animals. Second thing is get. Well, we'll try that again. When it rains here, it's amazing how our internet goes to heck in a handbasket. But anyway, job one is to find a trapper for him. Job two is to clear the dam enough where he can at least walk across it and inspect it with somebody that knows what they're talking about. So that's the first two things I told him. I said, now then job three, if you want to go ahead and start, he wanted me to bring the electrofishing boat, but I didn't. So, and I knew better. So there's no way I could conscientiously charge him for an electrofishing survey until I learned a little bit more about him and the lake. So I told him, why don't you go fishing, catch a few fish, send me some pictures, start keeping some records, do this other due diligence about the dam and get some animals trapped to get them off your dam, and then see what you need to do to fix that dam. Now, the other thing he wanted me to do was to go look at a site or two for a new lake, which I'll tell you about that in a minute, which we did do. So he asked me about the vegetation because he wanted to treat it. Here's what I told him. We're at the end of the growing season. It's about to go dormant. Even if you treated it, you're likely not going to kill it because it stopped growing, because it's going dormant. So it wouldn't take up any. My nose is itching. Somebody's coming to see me. So I said, don't kill those plants now because you don't know your habitat. And if you have any baby bait fish, they're going to be tied up in that habitat, in that aquatic plant's growth. Even though it's an exotic species, it's about to go dormant. When it will, some of it will die. And then based on what you think about and decide about the dam, if you need to drop that lake a few feet, we can do that over the winter. And that will, in between Tulsa and Oklahoma City, it will freeze that milfoil out. And you kill a lot of it that way. And then when the lake fills back up after you do your dirt work on the dam, then you're going to have a good fresh start. So his task list is to figure out what he needs to do with the dam, have it evaluated, go out and plot on his Lowrance depth finder what kind of habitat he's got. Do you have creek channels, brush piles, rocks, anything, which I doubt because the lake was built 60 years ago. Heck, that'd be like 61, something like that, which they didn't, bulldozer guys didn't build dams for fishing in 1960s, lakes for fishing. So job one is the dam. Job two is to go out and figure out your fish, and then we'll deal with the plants later, and we need to talk about habitat. So I wrote him up a little report, sent it to him. Now, he's got a couple places. He's got one spot where he's looked on a map and figured out he could build about a 15-acre lake, which he can. He can build a 15-acre lake. But I measured the watershed today. It's 100. Well, here we go again. I hate it. I apologize for that lousy-ass internet connection. I don't know what to do about it. And it happens every time it rains here. Okay, so anyway, then we got to look at his watershed's 100 acres. In that part of the planet, about 8 to 10 acres of watershed will support 1 acre of pond. So I dropped him a note today, giving him those suggestions I just told you about the existing lake. And I said, you've got a site for something between about a 6 and 18-acre lake. But you're going to need to kind of pare it down to about a 10-acre lake, because that's how big the watershed is that you've got that can support it. So we haven't had a conversation, but we're getting ready to. So that was the things that happened. The fascinating thing to me was the animals, the amount of evidence. And the fishery is going to be a reflection of those animals. especially if he's got river otters coming. And I saw 3 slides that were about the size of river otters. Then I saw 2 slides about the size of beavers, plus the beaver lodge. All the rest of them were small, like a mink, or a weasel or something like that, or a muskrat. Now I didn't see any muskrat huts, anything like that, but the water quality was pretty good. He's got mussels in that lake, and I found quite a few mussel shells where something had eaten the mussels. So there's some kind of a critter in there that can bust open those mussels and eat the inside of them. So anytime I see mussels, that's an indicator that the water's healthy. Mussels can't live in dirty mud or toxic water. So that was a good thing to see. So, Mike McPherson, anyone have any suggestions on bait for tilapia? I've tried cornworms, grasshoppers, and a few trout flies. Caught a channel catfish on the trout fly. Gonna try a cast net tomorrow, but they're more fun to catch on a rod. I have caught them on fish food. You can take some fish food, grind it up, mix it with just a little bit of cornstarch. You're going to laugh at this part. Big Red. I don't know why they like it. My daddy taught me that for catfish. I tried it for tilapia. It worked okay. Tilapia are grazers, and they're not active biters. But if you find it, like if they're coming to your fish food, if you get a little bit of fish food, even squirt a little fish oil on it, get some omega-3s or something and soak those in there with them. Add a little bit of cornstarch to thicken it. Add a little bit of Big Red, which kind of juices it up and gives them another odor. And you can catch a few of them. So there's Kevin Matney, Kim Moore. Hey, Kim, Ron Ardoin, we're going to see you on Sunday. I got to talk to Brett. Brett sent me an email today. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but I will. I see Jacob West. Travis, how did the visit with your son go? Texas A&M spanked Alabama. You know what? They did. And what's really crazy is the Aggie fans stormed the field. And for Alabama, it was just another Saturday. I guess those assholes need to go. I didn't say that. I guess those Row Tide need to go into the NFL where they belong. But it was really, really pleasurable to watch that game. It was a fun game. Alabama didn't lose the game. Texas A&M beat them. They had a better game plan. Their players played at a high level. The coaches coached at a high level. And 106,000 people yelled at a high level. And A&M beat Alabama. Wasn't any fluke about it. Alabama made one mistake. They fumbled the ball once. And if you'll go to my Facebook page, I put a photograph. My son turned 40 about 2 weeks ago. Since you're asking about that, it was pretty fun, Travis, because he is an avid Aggie. And I am too, and our daughter Ashley is too. But Jonathan really bleeds maroon. He totally does. He lives about 45 minutes from the school. Very active. His wife was a 4-year starter on the soccer team at A&M. She was a McDonald's All-American when she grew up in Minnesota. So both of them are Aggies. Their kids are Aggies. But Jonathan turned 40, and he was at the game. He texted me a couple times. And after the game, I wanted to call him and say, hey, what was it like sitting up at the stands watching all those people flood onto that field? Well, heck, I got a video from him. He's on the field. He stormed the field, too. And there's a Twitter link that I put up on my Facebook page with number 1 Aggie receiver, and he's got his arm around Jonathan on his thread, and it was pretty entertaining. Jonathan was as excited and pumped up as I've ever seen, so that was really, really fun. Yeah, Kelly Duffy, Kelly, I don't know if you saw Jonathan's video where he was with number 1, Hollywood, but that was one of the most fun games I've ever seen, and I've seen some. I remember the LSU game in 7 overtimes where the Aggies won by like 77-76 or something. Crazy. It was really, really fun. Let's see here. Let me go back down here a little bit. I'm missing some stuff. I see Jacob West checking in. Let's see what we got here. My apologies for the internet connection. I don't know how to fix that. Jimmy Brune. crappie nibbles and make sure they can't see you, the free line, the small. That's great advice. I love that. JP Clayton, fishing has been slow in our section of the Brazos. Where'd they go? You know, JP, I bet they're all bundled. You need to ask Trevor. Trevor knows that river pretty good. Trevor, shot vet, he knows that river. Trevor, where'd they go? Chime in to JP's question there. I got a feeling that they're on in the deeper holes, hunkered down, but with this rain, the rivers are going to rise and fish are going to be on the move for the most part. Danny Mack, hi Bob, yay Aggies, late here because I was dumbstruck looking at the pond and coming weather. It's raining like crazy here. Billy Bates, Bob, what's the biggest pure northern bluegill you have seen? I'm in Maryland and Jim Gronow has some big ones I've seen here. But what's the largest, heaviest you know of? Hello, Mike Garcia, Chico. I'm going to ring you tomorrow. We got a little road trip coming up, just a short one. And maybe then another one right after that. I got some info. I got some intel for you there, Chico. The largest pure strain northern bluegill I've ever seen is 2 pounds, 6 ounces. 12 inches long, maybe a little over 12 inches. I've seen those in the Midwest. I've seen them along the Atlantic seaboard. And there's no doubt in my mind, Billy Bates, that in Maryland, where you are, you can grow some giant bluegills. Now, let's talk about that for a minute. What does it take to grow really huge bluegills? You know, you gotta, you think about it, you think that it might be simple, just put them in there and feed them up. That's a piece of the deal. Now, one of the things that Bruce Condello did early on as he was studying about fish is he had a couple of hatchery ponds. He'd hatch bluegills. Then he'd go in each year in the fall, he would seine them out. He would keep the best of the best and keep those, put them back in the pond, take the other ones, go stock them in his fishing lake. And then he'd do that every year. He'd take the best of the best. And he got some bluegills knocking on the door of 2 pounds, but he didn't have good fish food back then. So what he did was selectively breed, selectively cull, selectively breed, selectively cull. Now, that's great if you've got that circumstance. But one thing Bruce was doing, although he was selecting for genetics, he also was figuring out which fish had the plasticity for that environment. So the fact that he had the ability to cull fish and feed an okay feed, but not a great feed because there was no feed on the market like that back then, he was still able to grow some bluegill that were knocking on the door of 2 pounds, but not quite there. So here's the way to grow really, really big bluegill. I'm going to tell you, there's a couple of really important secrets. First of all, preserve the best of the best. Secondly, you've got to harvest their reproduction. Bruce did it with a net. Now, what you're going to be doing, Billy, is you're going to be using largemouth bass that are overcrowded in a pond to help you cull the young of the year. Now, if you've got another pond somewhere where you can stock some bluegill and grow them and do like Bruce did, then you can go in and harvest the best of the best out of that pond, put them in your fishing pond, and you're going to speed up the process. So, to grow big bluegill, they need great nutrition. That's why I love Aquamax MVP by Purina. That's great nutrition. And you got to have something to minimize reproduction in that lake. Because bluegill are going to want to spawn in Maryland a couple times a year, maybe 3 times a year if they're being fed well. So survival rates of those young of the year, if the survival rates are high, it's going to take a lot longer to grow the big ones that you want. I can't emphasize enough, preserve your best bluegill, your biggest ones. Don't harvest them, don't eat them, let them grow because those are going to be the fish that dominate the spawning beds. And when they reproduce, there have to be fish get bigger than they are to bump them off the beds. Now, let me just stir this into this bluegill salad, add a little dressing to it. In Maryland, bluegill are going to live from 6 to 10 years. So that's your window. So you got to have recruitment, and you got to preserve your best ones, feed them a great food, and have some way, usually largemouth bass, males if you can do it, or just a handful of bass that are overcrowded that can eat the reproduction. And then you can grow some really, really big bluegills. But I'll also tell you this. I'm going to say before 2005, which was 25 years into my career, I'd probably held 10 or 12 bluegills that were 2 pounds, and I'd probably held 40 or 50 that were 1.5 pounds, but I'd held thousands of them that were 1.25 pounds. Fast forward 5 or 6 years from that, I'd probably held 250 2-pound bluegills by then, because that was about the time Purina was coming out with their not game fish job, but Aquamax feeds that are high protein, designed for those bluegill. Fish meal based fish food. They're designed for those bluegill. So there's no doubt in my mind that fish food plays a big role to get them to grow that big. Kevin, I lost a nice bass with a plastic worm. Will the bass, let me see here, where'd it go? Will the bass get the PW out of his mouth or die from this? He was lip hooked. I'm going to tell you this. One of my good clients, Larry Hensley, who let me stay in his cabin in Ruidoso, probably 15 years ago, he called me up. He says, "Man, I've caught 2 skinny bass." He said, "One of them I threw it back, but the other one I kept it, and I think it's sick." I said, "Well, can you put it on ice and ship it to me?" And he did. He shipped it to me, and this bass should have weighed 5 pounds. It weighed 1.75 pounds, and he caught it, so I know it was hungry. Well, I took that bass, and actually Dan Hoy, the facilities manager for Bass Pro Shops, happened to be at my house at that time. He and I had a couple things to go over, and he's the guy that back then he was in charge of all the aquariums and Bass Pro Shops. So I pulled out a fillet knife, and we cut into that bass, cut its stomach open, and 5 soft plastics came out of the stomach of that bass. So that stomach had a fetish for eating soft plastics off the bottom of the lake, because you could tell every one of those plastics had been discarded. So I called Larry back and I said, "Hey, tell me about that." He said, "Oh my gosh, after one of them tears up, I throw it overboard." I said, "Stop doing that, because, well, that's pretty freaking annoying. Very annoying." So one of those soft plastics, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a lizard that has a hard head. It was stuck right at the back of the fish's stomach, right in the opening of its large intestine. I mean, it's a small intestine. So that fish it was hungry, but it couldn't get any food past that soft plastic. I published that in Pond Boss back then, and I've got pictures of that. I was fascinated. It was nuts, totally nuts. So yes. Now, they can't digest the plastics, but that's what's ironic, is they can digest the hook. The acid in their stomach can eat up the hook, and they'll actually pass it. I've electrofished a lot of lakes. From time to time, we'll get one. You can see the shank of the hook hanging out of the anus of the fish, and you can reach over there and pull it, and here it comes along with the broken piece of monofilament. Now, most of the time, it's pretty irritated, but there's no doubt in my mind they can pass it. So there you go. Travis, I heard they fined Texas A&M $250,000. It's actually $100,000, and yes, they don't care. I tell you this, I thought about myself. I was so excited. I thought, well, heck, I could start a GoFundMe page, and I bet you within 30 minutes there'd be $500,000 in there. But I didn't do it. Tyler Cole, my catfish love Aquamax if they can only see the good-looking guy on the back of the bag. I'd have had nothing to do with that. My wife did that. Okay, there's Trevor's answer. They're going to be on hardcover and deeper holes eating jigs. Stripers have been moving through as well. Mica trail getting cooler. When should I cut back? Aerator. Right now, I still have it running. Keep it running. Here's the time. Everybody's got an aeration system. The time to shut it off is when your water temperature gets below 60. Because at that time, the aeration system has done its job for the entire year. Oxygen's affinity for oxygen, water's affinity for oxygen is going to go up as the temperature drops. So by the time the water's in the low 60s, it's holding enough oxygen top to bottom that's going to support your fish, and there's really no reason for that aeration system, because if you let it run all winter, it's going to cool the water down too cool from top to bottom. Even if you got trout, it's going to make the water too cool. So when the water's 60, going down, go ahead and shut it off, and get ready to crank it back up when your water temperature is 60 going up next spring. Now, pay real close attention, because if you miss that window and your water temperature 3 weeks later is 72, then you need to start it up like the manufacturers tell you start it up. So I'm not going to talk about that today, but you're going to start it up, run it for 15 minutes one day, 30 the next, an hour the next, on and on and on. But the question is, when do I shut it off? When the temperature is at 60 going down. That's when you need to do it. Okay, Tyler Cole, Clark's son. Tyler's daddy worked for me way back in the 80s. It was really fun, like 88, 89, 90, when he still had dark hair and a full head of it. Hey, Tyler, ask your daddy about hot plate. Ask him about that. Pretty fun. Okay, so Tyler says in the past 3 years, I'm up to 6 ponds now, about 17 acres worth of water. I'm addicted. That's a good addiction to have. I love one of Mike Otto's phrases. He'll give a speech, and toward the end of it, he'll look at the audience. He'll say, now, folks, I have never seen a kid in the back seat of a police car with a fishing pole and a tackle box. So raise them right, guys and girls. Frank James checking in from Louisiana. JP says, appreciate it. I've been dragging a jig in the pockets at Plantation Beach, but I haven't had much success lately. Been catching mostly smaller spotted bass off the rocks. Haven't been able to get a pattern going for the big girls. Well, you know what? I think Trevor's already starting to answer some stuff. Billy Bates, I do feed the bluegill, Aquamax and Optimal, and I have plenty of predators as well. I'm the one that had the snakeheads. Yeah, I remember that. So I should have a lot of immature bluegill get eaten up. You bet. That's good. Danny Mack. Hey, Danny Mack, I promised the former students at Texas A&M. I mean, think about it. There's 100,000 people there. All of them give $5. That's $500,000. And about, the largest TV audience, third largest in history, I think I read about it, they would do it too. My daughter-in-law over in Alabama, my son's girl, said, she was kind of picking on me on Facebook a while ago, talking about, well, it's just another Saturday for Alabama, but everybody that beats them storms the field. Well, okay, deal with it. Row Tidies. I do appreciate Alabama, but I appreciate A&M more. Just wish they'd have beaten Mississippi State. Mike Leach. Jeff Thompson, how would you utilize 4 small hatchery ponds to support 2 trophy bass ponds? Currently raising bluegill in 2 of them. Well, Jeff, you're in North Carolina, so I know that I think bluegill is one of the best ways to go. Now, if you're in a climate where you can have threadfin shad, which I don't know if you're far enough east or not, close enough to be influenced by the ocean to where your temperatures don't get too low, threadfin shad could be a good choice. I don't know. I don't remember the laws in North Carolina about tilapia, but I got a feeling there that tilapia are probably not fair game there. But bluegill are the best, really the best you can do. Now, if you want to raise some shiners, you can do that. You can call Anderson Minnow Farm next spring, and you can buy a bag that's got 150,000 shiner fry in it. If you've got a good green pond, you can grow some shiners and put it there. But I think bluegill are the backbone. Travis says, how's the house coming along? Travis, you and I are great friends, and we haven't even met. I'll tell you how the house is coming along. I love my wife, the queen, and the house has been moving along kind of slow. And she and I have kind of been in each other's throats a little bit, which I guess that's common, I don't know, for people going through the stress of remodeling a house. But she kind of took it over and is working with a longtime friend, coordinating subs. So the rock guy's been there, tile guy's been there, everybody's been there. But I'm not. So one of the deals I made with her, I said, you know what? This is your baby. You're the decision maker. I just got to come up with the cheese to feed the trap. So I've been chasing cheese to put in the trap. She's been working on the house, and I told her, you know what? I packed my travel bag. I said, when you got furniture in that house, call me. I'll come back. And I'm hoping within about 2.5 or 3 weeks, we're going to be living there, which I'm kind of excited about that. So being homeless is kind of a gig, but not bad, and actually sleeping on other people's couches and in easy chairs in hotels and a nice cabin in Ruidoso, New Mexico, ain't that bad. Okay, so Jeff, I answered that question. I think bluegill are your best bet for long-term. And actually, if you raise those, I'll tell you something that we did at Richmond Mill Lake. They had 2 small hatchery ponds. Their fishing lake's 125 acres. This will drive home that point for Billy Bates as well. We took those hatchery ponds, and twice a year, and we would feed the heck out of those fish. Now, that was back in 2005, 6, 7. That's when Purina was really drilling into creating better fish foods. They were improving the Aquamax line way back then, 15, 16, 17 years ago. So we would feed the heck out of those hatchery ponds. We would seine them in the spring, then in the fall. We would take the best of the best bluegill, throw them back into the hatchery ponds, take all the other fish, throw them in the lake. And after about 5 years of doing that, we started to see some 2 1/4, 3 pound, 3 1/4. Bruce Cadello caught 3 bluegill over 3 pounds, 3 pounds and 4 ounces. But then after we had bluegill in those hatchery ponds and they were about 4 years old, weighed 1 3/4 pounds, 2 pounds, we kept those in there to be the brood stock. So we were actually creating recruitment from fish that were undisturbed, fast growing, and they went in the lake. And that helped recruit with the population that was being preyed upon naturally, which I know in my heart of hearts that made a big difference in recruiting enough bluegill to grow huge in that lake. So that made a big difference. Frank says, I've been told that I need to fell 10 trees to add habitat. Will this just concentrate fish or also help the population? Frank, you felled a bunch of trees, so my question back to you, Frank, is who told you that, and do they know what you did? Did you show them pictures of what you did when you built the lake? So if they think you're lacking in habitat, do they really know that, or are they just coming up with that because that's what they think you want to hear? Now, here's to answer the question. If you wanted to add some habitat in your lake, all it's going to do is concentrate fish. It is not going to help the productivity of your lake at all. But it'll make them easier to catch, maybe. Danny Mac, I'm running the aerator for air temperatures between 60 and 90 with a mild summer. It rarely cut off in the mid-late afternoon. Yeah, you got the timer. You got your timer thing there. Okay, Chuck Brinkman did some relative length and weight checking this weekend. It pains me, but I'm going to have to call some of the smaller ones. Sure hate culling feed-trained bass. Let me help you with that, Chuck. I hate culling feed-trained bass. But when you look at your relative weights and girths, with your fish, I'd check a few girths and compare them. But here's something really, really interesting to me because I'm a fish guy. But even with feed-trained fish, when you're feeding those critters, they're going to top out. They can only get so big because of their genetic predisposition, that environment, the amount of space they have, and competition for that food. So even if your back pocket lets you buy all the food on the planet, and you've been through this process with what happens to your water quality. I wrote about that 2 or 3 issues ago. So what happens is you got to cull some of those fish, but cull the ones. So let's say all your relative weights range from 110 to 140. You need to be culling the males and those that are 110, 115%. Which I hate that, but if you don't cull some of those, the best of the best aren't going to grow bigger. Now, here's the caveat, and kind of the little bonus thought is you can go back and buy some more feed-trained bass that are a year old and are 12, 13 inches long. So you can go do your own recruitment to fill the void in age classes. Because when you're feeding feed-trained fish and they reproduce, their babies are not feed-trained because they hadn't spent the time in a trough in a hatchery with somebody standing over them and giving them food or an automatic feeder going off every 30 minutes. So I think you're at the point you ought to consider stocking a few more to recruit the junior varsity or the freshman team. Okay, let's see what Michael Eric says. Just hang with me here because I know this dadgum internet connection because it's starting to rain again. It's going to disappear. Before we do that, before I go any further, I see a bunch of questions piling up. I'll get to them. I want to thank the sponsors. I want to thank Easy Doc of Texas. I wish you could read that. It's backwards. It says Easy Doc Kangaroo. Deal for a 6-pack. I appreciate them sponsoring this show. I appreciate Purina Mills for sponsoring this show, and Texas Hunter Feeders sponsoring this show. You know, without those guys, it'd be hard to do this, although it's fun, and I'd probably still do it, but I'm just thankful that they believe in it too. Michael Ehrig, we stocked 50 11-inch muskie. I'm going to presume that's tiger muskie, along with 2,500 6-8-inch walleye and our 130-acre private Iowa lake. Some are upset about the muskie, as in they think a swimmer is at risk of getting bit. What are your thoughts? I think that's what that says. It disappeared on me here. What are my thoughts of a muskie biting a swimmer? I've never seen it. Never heard of it. I've heard the fears, but it just doesn't happen. Why would a tiger muskie that's 40 inches long want to take a hunk out of a swimmer's leg when it can go eat the bluegill, the bass, the yellow perch, or whatever, or the walleye? Now, they're going to lay up in shallow water and weeds. Typically, that's their habitat. But I can't imagine a tiger muskie coming to eat a swimmer or bite a hunk out of it. It's just they're not aggressive like that. They're as fearful as their life as they are aggressive to take another life. So unless you smell like a fish, go take a bath. If you smell like a fish and your leg looks like a fish, then you might get bit. So don't get a fish tattoo on your leg or you might get bit. But I'm not trying to be facetious, but I can't help it. I don't see a tiger muskie wanting to come bite a human. Kirk McGlamory, what weather criteria do you look for in fall to know when bass are pushing to the backs of coves? It's all related to temperature, Kirk. Every bit of this. All this is related to temperature. It's more related to temperature than it is to oxygen. Now, what you got to know is fish, this time of year, their whole mission in life is to gorge themselves on the most food they can. You know, since you asked about bass prefer water temperatures from the upper 60s to the mid 70s. That's their operating temperature. When it gets up around 82, 83, 84, that's too hot. They shut back. They don't feed nearly as actively. But boy, when that water temperature is between 68 and 75, they are after it. And at this time of year, you'd expect that your food chain is at its peak. That's what you'd hope, especially with bluegill reproduction in lakes. So these fish are going to go gorge themselves because they have an instinctive, innate, inherited trait to fill themselves up, build up body fat, get their muscles in good shape so they can live through the winter. Because if they don't, then they can deteriorate, decline, and die in the winter. So they're going to go up wherever the bait fish is. And if that's in the back of coves, they're going to go chase it. If it's edge cover, that's where they're going. If the bluegill are hanging around brush piles, they're going to go to brush piles. So if there's something attractive to those forage fish, whether it's gizzard shad, threadfin shad, golden shiners, bluegill, red ear, yellow perch, they're going to go wherever they can go to chase down that food so they can gorge themselves and fill up, just like a grizzly bear and salmon stream in Alaska. Look at it like that. Okay, so Frank James is being funny. He says, just attach a large spinner to every swimmer's ankle. They'll go for the spinner rather than the flesh. I like that idea. That's a good one. Okay, the Agri-Lime and the message I sent you, Christopher Aguilar, Boudin Daddy, said it worked. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Danny Mac, I think I'm in a similar situation. Some are small, some have gotten large. There you go. Lee Gripshover, 2 questions. Okay, bring them on. Christopher, Frank, once I had fallen trees, my bluegill flourished. Well, now, if you add some trees and your habitat's deteriorated, then the bluegill are going to come to that and your survival rates are going to go up. But the question was, will it increase my productivity? No, it won't. Okay, Trevor, diversify your locations. There you go. He's got the Brazos River going on. Lee, how much habitat is needed for a half-acre pond? Just did a rotenone treatment. What's your suggestions on how much fish to harvest? Separate pond is a 1/4 acre, about 3 years old. Goldie's big largemouth population. Population is bluegill, largemouth bass, channel cat, fathead minnows. How much habitat is needed for a 1/2 acre pond? Here's my general rule. I like to see 25 to 30% of small ponds, well, even big lakes, with habitat that has all the elements for a community. Think of it like that. You live in a community. You have a place that's safe where you can go hide. You got travel paths to go to the grocery store, to the schools, to the parks. You even have spawning beds at your house. Create all that for your fish. If you'll do that over about 30% of the water of the pond, then you're going to have enough. But it needs to be diversified. Spawning beds for the spawning fish. Golden shiners stick their eggs on grass. Bluegills spawn in little craters in an area about as big as the hood of a pickup truck in a 1/2 acre pond. You know, so fathead minnows like to stick their eggs on the underneath sides of firm objects like rocks, boat dock posts, PVC pipe, pallets, things like that. So if you do all that, then you're going to be able to do it. Okay, and then I missed something here. Things are moving on me. What's your suggestion on how much fish to harvest? Kind of based on how productive your pond gets. If you got a 1/4 acre pond that's 3 years old and you want big largemouth bass, you're going to grow 1, maybe 2. So harvest the smaller ones and protect the biggest ones and make sure they have enough to eat. Now the general rule is 20 to 30 pounds per acre. So in a 1/4 acre pond, that's small enough that you can over harvest it in 1 day. So keep track of your lengths and weights, compare those to standards for those fish, and when you see them start to lose weight, harvest a handful of those. That's kind of a fast-paced answer for a more detailed question. Jerry Siebert checking in from Oregon. Michael Eric, straight muskie. I don't think the straight muskie are going to do any different than tiger muskies. Jacob West says, Jacob's over there in Denison, Texas. How did the book writing go in New Mexico? I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to it too, Jacob. It's finished. It's gone to layout design. I got everything done. And for those of you that don't know, about, 2017, Debbie and I went with our friends Bucky and Mary Lanehart to Alaska on a bear hunt from a boat. So what the deal was is we paid, and I'm not mad at bears. My whole thing is I wanted to catch some salmon and some flatfish. So we went and spent 7 days on that boat. And of course, and that was in May, and the sun kind of goes toward dusk and dawn at the same time for about 3 hours from 11 to 1, 2 in the morning. You know, and as the sun starts to wane a little bit, you can see the bears way up there 7 or 8 miles away coming down the valleys. And those that want to go hunt bears get shuttled in a little skiff to the shore and they hunt. And everybody else stays on the boat, eats, drinks, and fishes. So we caught a whole bunch of halibut, and we caught a whole bunch of salmon. And in my free time, when I didn't care about fishing, I finished a book. I wrote a book. And this book is, I haven't got a title for it yet. I'm working on that. I think I'm going to call it Beyond the Basics of Fishing Pond Management. That's what I think it's going to be. So I wrote that book, then I brought it back. I had it proofread, edited, gone through. Everything's perfect. But I've not had the 4 or 5 days in a row I needed to pick out pictures for it. So I took that time in Ruidoso, New Mexico. I went through 8,000 pictures, cataloged them, named them, organized them where I could find them later, and all that to get about 125 pictures to put in this book. So I did that, wrote captions, assigned a spot for them in each chapter, 7 chapters, and it's gone to the layout guy. We put out bids for printers. We picked a printer. The layout guy's working with that printer, and as soon as he finishes it and I can see it and sign off on it, we're going to print it. And it'll probably sell somewhere, it looks like around $20. I don't know. Debbie was making fun of me the other day. I was talking to her. She said, "Did you get your book finished?" I said, Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about it. What's it like being married to an author? She said, "What's it like selling everything you know for $20? Ugh. I kind of winced on that. Travis says, but she's right. Thanks so much for your knowledge. Hope all the family is well, and it wouldn't be Wednesday if I didn't ask about the newest Princess Lusk. She's an absolute doll. I'm falling deeply in love. Little Charlotte Catherine. She's a little over 2 months, and she just rolled over, which I think that's a big deal. She's going to give her big brother a run for their money here in a few months. She'll be able to out-talk them and chase them. Danny Mac have been thinking about feeding input versus fish waste in a well-rated, aerated pond. That's all about volume. You know, look at, and Danny, with the way that you've done it, is when you're pumping your water, and recirculating and aerating, when you move your water, it's going way back up top to a waterfall, cascading across thousands of tons of rocks in a waterfall. So what you're basically doing is you're creating the substrate for bacteria, denitrifying bacteria, there's your big word, where the water can go over those substrates where bacteria cling and they collect the ammonia and change it into a non-toxic form like nitrites and send it back down into your pond. So yours is way, way, way better than a septic tank. But a lot of us can look at our ponds as septic tanks. You know, I had a call from a guy with catfish. He was losing catfish 6 or 8 weeks ago. The problem was he fed them and fed them all they'd eat. He got to the point where he was feeding in a 3-acre pond almost a bag of catfish food every day. Well, by the time the catfish convert that 2 to 1, so you put in 100 pounds of fish food, you got 50 pounds of waste, and that was more than what the pond could process over a short period of time. So if he fed less, then they could process it, but his fish would level off and not grow as much. His problem was he didn't harvest any fish, and the water got toxic, couldn't keep up with the demand, and killed some fish. So, hello, Bob Mayer. Good to see you, brother. Wyatt says sell it for $30. Okay, $30. Inflation. Just don't send it to China for printing. Nope, I'm not going to do that. We're going to print that sucker right here. Right here. It's actually, hey, Michael Eric, it's going to be printed in Iowa. Sutherland Printing Company is going to print my book. So, I like that part. Let's see what's up. Chico is watching the show. Chico is a longtime friend of mine. Met him through a radio show. About once a month, I'll do a radio interview on 1300 The Zone AM in Austin, Texas, either from 5 in the morning to 8 in the morning on Saturday or 6 to 8 in the morning on Sunday with Ken Milam. And Chico is basically his right-hand man. And that's how I met Chico. Now, every once in a while, they'll call somebody, can't get them on the phone, they'll call me to pinch hit, wake me up in the middle of the night, like at 6 in the morning, and want me to be on the radio, which I'm always happy to do that. So Chico is a world-class videographer, and he and I have put together our videos for the Bob Lusk Institute of Higher Pondology. Now, for those of you guys and girls that are getting ready to build a lake, or you want to take a pond and make it better, go to pondboss.com and click on Institute. Now, it's a little bit pricey, but it's worth it. It's going to keep you from paying the dumb tax. Now, Chris Blood, if you're watching, I know you're giving me a big round of applause because I don't promote myself. But what I am going to promote is the value of what these videos bring to somebody that's learning about how to manage ponds and lakes. We got 6 different modules. They range in price from $79 up to like $225 or something. I don't remember. But if you buy all of them, it's $425. And I promise you, what you learn off those videos will help keep you from paying the dumb tax and some things. So, and Chico and I are working on a couple of stellar videos that we're going to add to that collection. Now, once you've bought in and we add new videos, you've already paid for them. You get to watch them. And then he and I are going to spend some time on a couple of trips coming up pretty quick where we're going to go teach people about how to design habitat for a fishing lake. And I've got 3 lakes right now in process where the landowners have done exactly what I've taught them and what I've suggested, and they have done a great job. There's one in East Texas, one in northeast Missouri, and one in southeastern Iowa. And if we can get there before they fill up with water, you're going to get a video that people are going to it'll say help save you thousands of dollars in great fishing experiences. So take a look at the Institute of Higher Pondology videos. Digital on Amazon, you could be widely famous. Yeah, I want to be famous. Andy Mack, you know better than that. I just want to check with your signature autograph on the bottom of it for that book. Kevin, I wish you was around in 1998 when I started my pond. I was around in 1988. Where were you? Actually, that was the year we started the Pond Boss website. And that was the year we started the Pond Boss discussion forum. You know, that was when we were about to come to the conclusion that this internet thing was more than a fad. So we started our first discussion forum in 1998, had that one for a little over 3 years and outgrew our software, restarted one in 2002, and that one's going to this day, so it's 19 years old. Okay, William Jackson, got here a little bit late, but I would like to know if pond dye will help slow down lily pad growth. Would it affect the fish? Pond dye will not affect lily pad growth. The root of lily pads in American lotus sit in soil sometimes 18 inches deep, and water sometimes as deep as 4 or 5 feet. So when they get ready to spit out a lily pad, a leaf, they're going to do it. Now, will it affect the fish? It's not going to affect the fish directly, but what can happen with pond dyes is it disrupts the food chain of the water, which can affect newly hatched fish if the timing is off. When a fish is first hatched, they weigh like 12,000 per pound, bluegills, bass, things like that. And they don't have any body fat. So when they absorb the yolk of what used to be their egg into their gut cavity, they're out of food. They got to eat. And when you're about, a quarter of an inch long, how big is your mouth? So they got to be gleaning food typically from the water column. So what pond dyes do is it prohibits UV ray sunlight penetrating the water, which disrupts the food chain, which can certainly impact newly hatched fish and have your survival rates plummet. Because if they can't eat an hour and a half after they've absorbed that yolk sac, they'll starve to death. So let's see here. Donnie Hines, I'm having my pond dug out to 8 to 10 feet deep. One just dug out. What do I need to do first? Donnie, habitat. As goes the habitat, so goes what lives in it. So based on your goals of what you want to do with that pond, you need the habitat that's going to support not only the fish you want, but the fish to support the fish you want. And not only that, hey, like Ronco says, hey, wait, there's more. You got to support the tiny fish, the medium-sized fish, the bigger ones, bigger ones, bigger ones. So habitat's your next bet. So that's your tip for that. Recommendation on control of lily pad growth, getting out of control. It's getting ready to go dormant. Next year when the lily pads start to pop up, go to Aquaplant. Just look up Aquaplant on the Texas A&M University website. They've got great advice. Or friend Kelly Duffy. Kelly's watching this show tonight. Scroll back up through these comments, find Kelly Duffy, click on his page and friend him. He will help guide you through that. So look at aquaplant.tamu.edu, I think it is. Identify the plant and then look at the different treatment options and you can do something like that. So here we are, 7:30, wrapping it up. I hate that the internet connection chopped into our time together, but I'm glad you guys all hung in there. I appreciate you watching. I don't know where I'm going to be next Wednesday, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be with you. And I'll try to get a better internet connection. So, once again, thanks for hanging out. Pond Boss, pondboss.com, Institute of Our Pondology. Y'all know the drill. So, until next Wednesday, adios.